From We Are Spectacular, this is the Spectacular Marketing Podcast, a podcast about everything brand, marketing, digital and social for the food and drink industry and beyond. It's the morning after the night before in terms of the big semi-final, and I hope the heads aren't too sore and also that people are recovering from the excitement and also the sadness and what could have been feelings. Weirdly, I woke up with While My Guitar Gently Weeps in My Head by George Harrison and the Beatles. But also, I think Oasis are going to make a killing on all of their slow songs that just seem so suited for this occasion. Today, it's actually a bit of a special, and I'm really, really, really excited because we have in the studio Robbie Deeks from VaynerMedia. So blessed and excited and just wondering how we even managed this to get someone from one of the world-class agencies out there, VaynerMedia, to come in and talk to us about the importance of digital and e-commerce. Robbie talks about the funnel, the sales funnel, and how actually it doesn't exist anymore, and gives great tips on how you can get more people to your .com site, more people booking at your restaurant, more people getting takeaway, and more people taking delivery, and actually buying products from you in areas outside of your .com, like your Amazon shop. He talks at length as well about gamifying the sites like Amazon and Deliveroo and Uber Eats, of which he is a big fan. So without further ado, I'll give you over to Robbie and his incredible wisdom at a young age in terms of how you can really smash it on your e-commerce efforts. This week, it gives me great pleasure to have some greatness in the room. So I'd really like to give a warm welcome to Mr. Robbie Deeks.
Good to be here.
And Robbie you've got a fancy title, man. So you're the Director of E-commerce Revenue at VaynerMedia.
Correct.
Cool. So it feels a bit of a special today because, you know, we've had some good and greats in the podcast over the last few months. But I think we're touching greatness in that Kevin Bacon 6 degrees of separation kind of thing, and that we're one or two people away from the incredible Gary V and all the wonderful people at VaynerMedia, you know, Eric and Claude and all these inspirational people that a lot of you I know follow and take their words of wisdom. So I've been warned as well, Robbie's a Canadian. Definitely not American. So I'm down with that because of the Scottish English thing as well. So I understand your pain. But yeah, so I'm really glad that you could make it along.
Thanks for having me.
This is the first time we've met as well.
Yes.
So a lot of the time it's old friends talking nonsense. So hopefully it's new friends talking sense, which should be really cool as well. So really, I was just going to start off by, you know, sort of looking at your background and, you know, translate it, the America's Got Talent journey, the highlights and best bits of how the hell you got this incredible job at, I'm guessing, such a young age.
Yeah. So, I'm 25.
Shit.
So I started sort of being interested in business when I was very young. And I launched a lawn care, eventually became a landscaping company in high school. And that sort of got me onto the entrepreneurial sort of business building bug.
Nice. What age was this?
That was 17.
Okay. And the name, was it a cool name?
Thousand Islands Lawn and Landscaping.
There we go.
Nice. So I started that, and then when I was in school, I wasn't much of a student. I was much more of a sort of practitioner and doing projects or actually starting different types of small businesses at the time. So one of the businesses I started was an agency where I could help local businesses. I would build websites for them and do simple paid marketing. easy way for me to make cash to pay for the bars during college. and then I had an opportunity to join at Western University a incubator for startups. And my job was basically business development and sales and marketing across all 7 startups. So I had to learn how to use my time wisely. But about 3 or 4 of them were e-commerce companies. And at the time, they were all using a service known as Shopify. And so that was sort of my first introduction both to Shopify, but also just working really in e-com, or at least starting to get an understanding of how it worked and how to build a brand from scratch. From there, I sort of, knew I wanted to go into tech at the time. That's not true anymore, but at the time, sort of what every person was wanting to do. And so I wrote down criteria of the perfect company. One was a high growth company where I could get a lot of experience. And then another was in a space where I thought I could leverage the insights to go to the next thing, and maybe start my own type of company. And so at the time, one of the co-founders, Daniel of Shopify, spoke to a class I was in about entrepreneurship, and I was sort of hooked. And I realized Shopify Plus, the enterprise version of Shopify, was just starting in Waterloo, not too far away. And so I really believed in it, and I sort of knew, I think it was around 40 people at the time, that it could be a fit. And so I dropped out of school early and finished with a 3-year degree instead of my 4-year.
That's interesting. I did the same.
Yeah,
exactly the same thing.
It's worked.
Yeah, well, so far. I've not been found out yet.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. So I did that, joined Shopify Plus around person 50. The company did, obviously, and is still doing incredibly well. I think in the 24 months I was there, went from 50 to 500. And I was put in. Lauren Pallaford, the GM of Shopify Plus, decided to hire people with no experience and put them in a senior sales type of role.
Right.
So I basically leapfrogged years of having to go through sort of the sales development roles and all that. And I was working on really any size of account I would bring in. Which is good and bad. But so having been successful, I was a top outbound sales guy. The company was growing. You can capture you get a lot of credit for something that half the time is probably the market. And then in the second year of Shopify Plus, started a team called New Markets, which was essentially how we could leverage being efficient and targeting both product and geography wise to sell more efficiently versus just selling the same thing to everyone. So that included things like how could we sell to private equity, how could we sell even to esports, things like that would give us sort of an advantage when selling against the competition. And so that was coming up to 2 years. I sort of knew I wanted to do my own thing. And so I had a friend, Gareth Everard, who outside the business for 2 years, who was also at Western University with me, had started a successful men's grooming company.
Was this e-commerce based?
It was both. So the funny part was, in an e-commerce world, he started a B2B selling to barbershop and distributor type of men's razor business called Rockwell Razors. That's done incredibly well and sells internationally, and is e-commerce on Shopify Plus today. And now he's still starting to ramp that up. But to sort of tie it together, I was planning on leaving and joining Gareth, and I thought, I'll double down on sales for Gareth and then also help to get the e-com part going. And we thought, okay, well, if we can do this, we should, raise capital and we can even start a new brand. And so that's when, I tried or used Alex DeSimone, who we both mentioned, and asked him if I could get a meeting with Gary Vaynerchuk.
Shout out to Alex.
Yeah, shout out to Alex, the man, the legend.
Good lad.
And so, Alex was kind enough to actually get that time on Gary's calendar, which, as you know, is incredibly difficult.
It's not easy.
And And so that was about early August of 2017, and the meeting was booked for early to mid-September. And I think Gary goes on vacation and he has no idea what happens to his calendar. Or like my meeting would never get brought up on his radar. But within that time, Gareth and Rockwell got into a really large distribution deal. The sort of goals or strategic direction of the business changed. Me and Gareth, I don't know what I'm going to do if I have no stock to sell. And I'm a sales guy. So with that, I, talked to a bunch of mentors, try to figure out, what made sense to use this meeting with Gary Vaynerchuk. You don't want to cancel that meeting.
No. And you don't want to blow your chance.
You don't want to blow your chance. That's true. And so I thought about it, and I called Alex and I said, hey, I'd like to make the meeting about this actually. And what it was during my 24 months at Shopify Plus, and we can talk about this more, I had a bird's eye view of the entire sort of e-commerce ecosystem. Both of if you saw a lot of these digitally native vertical brands moving up or launching brands, they were starting on Shopify or Shopify Plus. And if you saw the CPGs, because they were being more lean, they were using Shopify and Shopify Plus.
CPGs?
It's like the Fortune 100s,
right.
Like the Nestle's and the Mondelez. Yeah. And then you also saw a lot of these major long-term e-commerce, Goliaths also move over. And so one of the things that I did see though was in the Shopify Plus ecosystem, the opportunity, or just e-commerce ecosystem overall, was you had all these system integrators, right? You had these, 20, 25 person dev shops. And you might have had a bunch of, the rest of the agency landscape that does only creative or does only, media buying. And no one was actually sitting under one roof.
And they're going to be selfish to themselves, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Like they have to build and agencies are incredibly difficult to scale. Yeah. So you have to sort of almost choose one. Yeah. And so what I saw though was with Vayner, who had been a partner of Shopify Plus, was when they worked on a few different projects, was their ability to actually scale the brands and not just sort of build the store for them type of thing. And so to me, I already knew from the development piece, and I knew Shopify Plus so well that if I sort of plugged in that last piece of the puzzle for Vayner, they were sort of that offering that everyone was looking for. And Sabir Samarkand, the SVP of e-com at Vayner, Gary hired years ago. So Gary's always been ahead of it. So they've already gone through, Sabir was a former SVP of Vitamin Shop e-com and launched Perry Ellis and has just, 20 years background in Vayner. So I was like, everything's here. The last piece I think is really sort of the platform piece, the technology piece. And then I could leverage what I saw a lot of brands that, grow to 100 million, how do they grow to 1 billion? Yeah. Right? And then in the CPG space, how do you take a company that's doing zero in e-com today and actually launch something that has success, not only revenue-wise, but success compared to, the P&L of every other brand manager in a Pepsi.
And what about the meeting then? What happened? The big day? You get out of bed going, oh crap.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, I was telling everyone that I was going to go join Rockwell or work with my friend Gareth. And I had a deadline for sure. I gave myself those 2 years. So I was like, okay, hopefully this goes well. So the meeting was 10 minutes. But
it's sort of like dog years.
Yeah.
We got right.
Yeah,
so 10 minutes is like 2 hours.
Yeah, that's
packed in.
It's a long time. So Alex DeSimone was in the meeting as well, who got me it. Shout out again. And he set it up very well. Sort of gave my background in the sort of intro. And then, I told Gary what I thought I could bring to the table and help. And I've had known Sabir. I've met him a few times in the existing team, e-commerce team at Vayner. I saw them maybe 3 or 4 times over the course of 2 years. So I had context. And so, I said, here's what you guys are doing really well. Here's what I think I can help bring to the table. And on minute 5, he hired me on the spot.
Nice work.
So yeah, that was good. And then it was just another 5 minutes of jamming of like, how big Vayner eCommerce could be.
Are you a Jets fan or a Green Bay fan, or is it all that sort of questioning as well?
Yeah, so I am a Jets fan. I'm a Jets fan not because I'm from New York, obviously, but because I was a Brett Favre fan, and he obviously did the Jets stint and then the Vikings. Then he was out of the league, and I never had a team. Being in Canada, you kind of choose any American team, but I hadn't chosen
sort
one
of
yet.
like being Scottish.
Yeah.
You sort of have a big team.
Yeah.
So you have your Scottish football team, but then you have your
exactly.
Man U, Liverpool, Chelsea, whatever.
Exactly. So I was like, okay, well, I didn't want to use Green Bay because they were already really good immediately with Aaron Rodgers. So I was like, that's too much of a bandwagon.
Yeah.
And I was like,
You want a challenge?
Yeah, and I was like, there's no way I'm going to be a Vikings fan.
No.
And at the point, I was already a fan of a few other New York teams. So I was like, Jets it is.
Yeah, might as well go with it.
Yeah, paid off in hindsight.
Yeah, definitely smart move. So, just going back to your Shopify role, so when you're talking about the sales and the outbound and all this thing, I've got the Leonardo DiCaprio sort of thing in my mind with dwarfs getting thrown at dartboards and all that kind of
Yep.
sort of testosterone kind of thing. But you were actually using, just personal phone calls and emails and things like that to then sell B2B, or how is that working?
Yeah, so like our job was to expand the platform to enterprise businesses to use, right? So sales, right, for the platform.
But it's just that kind of irony of
Not
e-commerce.
using,
But we do it too. We do it too. We actually don't spend that much money on marketing at all.
Yeah. Well,
Really?
I think a lot of it is at the scale that they were. I think it's something probably they're doing more of now. But in a world where historically clients, doing over X amount of revenue, maybe 50 million, even 10 million, have spent so much on software. Yeah. It's very hard to explain to them in a Facebook ad that they can actually spend much less and reallocate all those dollars to smarter initiatives such as actually media driving towards the site or whatever it is. And so Shopify Plus and credit to a lot of the early people and Lauren Powell for we were at a disadvantage in terms of the enterprise market, right? Which was also very exciting, right? Like we were all super hungry. And so it was, my time there was 2 years of constantly trying to get in front of decision makers and help them understand that they didn't need to be spending, half their budget on a 40-person engineering team. They could have, 2 guys and a partner agency and then spend their time doing what they're actually good at, which is branding and brand building and marketing.
And what was this entry level cost for something like that for a business?
So in Shopify Plus, the early on licensing fee when we started was around $2,000, and it's evolved into there's still a baseline platform fee, which you'll have to call the team now and ask what that is. So and then sort of a rev share model as you get bigger with a cap. But look, there's businesses that are doing 10 million that are spending hundreds and hundreds of thousands, where the reality is, you could probably be spending somewhere closer between $20,000 to $50,000 a year licensing fee. Remove a lot of the engineers that weren't actually adding speed or value to the business. It was more maintenance work, and not really need to have an entire budget towards that exact stuff, maintenance and whatnot. So it's much more of reallocation of revenue generating activities, right? Can you take 200,000 here and put it back into going on the offense?
And then I'm being mindful of, I always think about my grandmother, of the granny test. So just in case anyone's listening that doesn't know what Shopify does, then just in a one-liner, it would be useful just for that context, I think.
Yeah, so Shopify is a software as a service, a SaaS e-commerce platform that was initially built for the founder himself. I think it was 2004 or 2006, somewhere in there, because he was trying to sell snowboards, and he realized it was incredibly hard to sell anything. And so he wrote the code in Shopify for himself, realized he was actually onto something in terms of making e-commerce easier. I mean, back then it was really bad, but making it easier for entrepreneurs. And it scaled to be the largest e-commerce platform globally. And so that's sort of the whole intent. And then with Shopify Plus, we took the speed and agility and efficiencies of the platform that we created for entrepreneurs, and we've extended it to the enterprise, because the truth is they need to be more entrepreneurial than ever. Yeah.
So thinking about your skill set in terms of this helicopter view of the digital ecosystem, then, what would, if someone's starting up today, so let's say they're starting a restaurant and they are looking at, I guess 2 things probably, but you might correct me with more, but you'd be thinking about they want to get tables booked.
Yep.
And they probably want to be able to sell takeaway, and they want to be able to, maybe they've got some physical products like sauces or wines or gifts, or, so say that's the range.
Yep.
What would be the sort of advice that you say, right, here's how you're going to maximize that opportunity?
Leveraging e-commerce. Right. So I'm, now that you know that I'm, my background really is, heavily in sort of sales. I like to sell shit. So when I work with clients and we're working with a lot of people and some that have entered this space is.
But I think, just on your point though, I think it's really great that you've said that, because so many people shy away from it. And so many people in my world, in terms of marketing and branding, they don't like the S word. They don't want to. They don't want to be in sales. They don't. And it's like, what do you think your job is?
Yeah. Exactly. Which is why I've kind of started thinking I've never called myself a marketer.
No.
But now that I've been sort of piecing this stuff together, part of what I think I do have marketing ability, but it's because I'm reverse engineering how to sell shit.
Yeah. Well, what's going to make the boat go faster?
Yeah.
Right? And to what, we always ask, to what end? When you get a brief, it's, well, we want to do this because of this, and we want brand points to go up, and fine.
Yeah.
To what? Oh, we want to make more money.
Yeah.
Bingo.
But and just to add to that, also empathy. When I was at Shopify Plus, and this is definitely a skill I had to build, but when you're
Did you have zero empathy before?
I think in the sales process, but when you're working with, trying to convince, a guy that for the past 10 years has been using a 30-person engineering team and having $2 million tech budgets, to, cut that more than in half and reallocate it. You also have to have that empathy and understand what's going through the client's mind.
Yeah.
And so having developed that skill a lot really over the past 2 years, it applies exactly to marketing, where I think a lot of marketers don't actually have empathy.
No.
They like to maybe do the lean startup model and build a whiteboard of who their customer is, but then they don't actually listen to their own advice or listen to what the customers wants. So I think right out of the gate, one of the places we'll talk about is a lot of people, when they do e-com, they're doing it for what they want as the result versus what the customer wants.
Yes, exactly. And it's disappointing.
It for everyone.
Yeah. And we talk about this in the podcast quite a bit, which is, if you are a marketer or a sales or whatever, first of all, as you say, put yourself in that other person's shoes. Understand the world they're living in, the challenges that they have, because it happens to us a lot where we get a brief in, and then maybe, some of the team will be like, why wouldn't they listen, or why wouldn't they just do that, or what? And you're like, look, there's a whole bunch of stuff going on here, which is they might have a new boss, or their job might be at risk, or the investors are pulling out, or you've got to think of, and it's, it's a marathon, not a sprint, and, it's a game of chess and all these cliches, but, it's not just as cut and dried as that.
Exactly.
The best time of your life ever is if you have a clear runway and you get to do what you want, do what you've recommended with the customer in mind, but life ain't like that, so I think unfortunately a lot of the time you are compromising, and maybe you've just got to hang off for a bit, and have that EQ and that empathy, definitely. So I think that's a good point, but ultimately you're there to sell stuff. That's your job, so yeah, good point. So when you're looking at that for, this restaurant, whatever we want to call it, Robbie's Burgers or whatever, then, in terms of e-commerce, what would you advise now? Because it's very different from someone that started in 2004 or 2006 to maybe what the playbook is now. Yeah,
so I think it's definitely changing a lot too, and you're seeing a lot more opportunity in white space. And I think coming back to the whole empathy for what people want is more important than ever. If you look at things like Uber Eats or like Deliveroo here, there's opportunity to actually have delivery right to the client. So all of a sudden there's a lot of interest in having people be more aware of the brand, and leveraging. A lot of people, they're using the website in the restaurant space just to have a website, and they're not using it to actually draw the customer to converting on ordering in, or they're not incentivizing anyone to come to the .com and actually give a shit about being on the .com. There's no value happening there. It's more of a pamphlet about what's on the menu, which, in itself has been valuable for companies and sort of is more like the Yelp type model. But I think the .com is completely being underutilized for driving experience, leveraging content to drive awareness. Like, we were talking about the football, right? And the opportunity restaurants had to create a campaign and with digital media and drive it to their .com and integrate that with a campaign at their bar for the past 30 days.
Well, I think
traffic.
The difficult thing is, I'll just pass you some more water if you need. So the thing that bugged me about some of the restaurant guys lately was getting emails through and social media posts going, "Drinks on us tonight if England win," and you're just like, it's just lazy to me, right? Because people are probably somewhere else.
Yep.
Last night, and it's the day after the semi-final, so sorry guys about that stuff. But, from that perspective, it's like, that didn't finish last night till when? 10:30 or 10 o'clock or whatever.
Late.
So, really, you're going to invite drunken people who are now getting a bit punchy and violent, and hopefully not, hopefully everyone looked after each other, but from that perspective, it seemed ludicrous to me that and that was your main campaign. It was like, well, why not make an event of it? Because actually, for some customers, they don't want to go to a big noisy pub to watch the game. So actually being in a restaurant setting and having an experience throughout where you've got your table, would that not have been a better shout? And doing the hard work rather than free shots on us or whatever. It was just like, that doesn't seem right.
I think lazy was probably a good word to use there. I also think it's like everything else. If you're playing the same game as everyone, you're going to get the same results. Yeah,
there was so many, like, it was almost like the GDPR email. Yeah. With the same thing up that the day before, every single person has to sign up, and it's like, well, no.
Yeah. So I think that was probably a bigger miss than most people realize. Now, of course, the bars did well, right? Yeah. They're looking at their sales numbers, and you were saying people were, what was it?
So Roger at Box Park, I was on a panel with him the other day, and he's just a fabulous man. And he was saying that people were buying 2 beers, one to drink and one to throw. So if you see any footage of when England scored, you just see but I was talking to one of my very tight almost Scottish friends the other day, and he's a bit tight with money, and he said, "Wouldn't you just get a tap water to throw?" You know, like, why are you throwing beer? That just seems crazy. But yeah, and also I'm glad that it wasn't in Scotland, because it probably wouldn't have been beer. It would have been some sort of bodily fluid. So yeah, I'm glad about that. But yeah, so close. So I think, you know, the thing about, you know, the food and drink industry in general, talking more restaurants, things like that, like, I think with that playbook, I think the guys are overworked, under-resourced, and not grabbing the potential of e-commerce. So what I'd be really imploring a lot of the clients to do is treating it like your barber supplies.
Yeah.
You're a restaurant, I understand that, but actually act like you are an e-commerce business.
Yeah.
And do the work, you know, do the A/B testing, get the website UI, UX working, so, but I think the guys are really underestimating what works in terms of paid as well. So they're buying, maybe not quite a Ferrari, but they're buying the website, you know, whatever analogy you want to use or example, but then they're not filling it with any gas or electricity. So I think it's just such a miss, you know?
Yeah, it's 100% true. But that's why it's not working, right? They're saying, oh, we invested and it's not working, but they're not actually investing in growing it. And so I think comparing it to the barber side of things, part of the reason why Gareth and his investor even looked at this space was because it was being underutilized. And what's more interesting is Gareth's, one of his investors is a barber supply guy, so he sells all the supplies to barbers.
Right.
And so there's been a huge opportunity. Actually, one of the businesses I'm most excited about is that one where, because if you look at all the other suppliers, they're distributors offline and they have a .com, but they're not driving anyone there, and then they're not actually making the experience better, right? So, and I think that's an important thing, is these restaurants aren't making the experience better.
Yeah.
First of all, they might not be executing 100% on the website or the .com, right? And it's making people more frustrated with the experience, right? Not less. And then two, they aren't creating new reasons or ways of the customer leveraging the .com, right? So we talked about, could they actually start doing delivery? Could they should they decrease wait times for takeout? Could they do specials? Are they even capturing customer information? I think if you want to do the unscalable, right? Scale the unscalable. I think one of the biggest things is, are they doing the right things to capture that customer's information on the .com? In addition to being set up to actually do it? Because, in a local restaurant, the ability for to retarget everyone that comes to the .com with Facebook ads, right, on like crazy CPMs, and then be able, if you have their email, to put out content that people really care about, right, or create campaigns people really care about, and then be in their inbox, but in the right way. That's super valuable, and I think everyone's probably under executing on each of those points. And so, you don't have to do much to get a lot, right? In terms of, like, if you hit gold once in one of those sort of three buckets, there's a lot of value that can come long term, especially if we're talking about recurring customers.
And just thinking about then, so the funnel. So how would you describe the funnel then for people, so they've got it in their mind? So, you're attracting traffic. What's the funnel through to sales? Have you got a sort of sales funnel in mind that you use? Yeah.
So in sales, I do. In eCommerce, the funnel sort of doesn't exist anymore. Right. It's much more of a customer journey where, they go to the .com. Or they're in the store, they want to do research, so they go to Google. So you're going to want to be winning that SEO, but then they also go on Instagram. Right. If you have products, you'll go to Amazon maybe and look up the reviews. It's all over the place.
That's interesting.
Right? And so you actually want to look at different digital touch points that can help with that customer journey and support. Maybe that person who today is a researcher or a low intent user, trying to discover or learn more about the brand and comparing it to brands, X through Z, or maybe it's a high intent user. And so how does the digital touch points, then the Instagram or the Facebook ad, how do you communicate them?
Yeah.
And so half the game is again, back to empathy, understanding who those different people are and what they're looking for at different points. And then how are you servicing those, communicating properly to that person at that moment, right? In the right way and on the right channel, right? Which sounds complicated as shit.
It does. I was just, my brain was whirring. I was just thinking, so how do you go about that?
Sure. So let's even give an example from another way to use the .com wisely, right? In terms of personalization.
Yeah.
So being able to capture information is super important on .com, because one of the things that you can easily do with Shopify and something called Flow is tag these people, right? So Jimmy comes to the .com today, and you had a great campaign that was like, Jimmy's a first-time guy on the .com. We're going to give him, $20 off coupon or whatever, right? And then we can tag Jimmy on the back end of the system, be like, first time visitor, gave $20 coupon. And then as you keep doing that over time, you're gonna be able to segment all those different customers, right? And then you can test based on segments, different ways of communicating them to get Jimmy to come back a second and third time, right? Or what promotions work on times 3 through 5 Jimmy visits the site.
Yeah.
Right. So part one is being set up to actually be able to do anything and test those different levels of communication.
Yeah.
But from there, as you started seeing the data, maybe a Suzanne will actually over 12, 24 months buy a lot more than a Jimmy. And so you want to actually start building content and focusing content and different digital customer journey experiences for the Suzanne.
Yeah.
And so a lot of what's important is actually, because again, back to the point about caring about selling shit, is understanding who's buying it.
Yeah.
And then just making sure you're understanding all the different touch points they're on. And then in as lean as you can, be able to interact with them there and communicate the way they want to be communicated to.
And is there a chance that we can get a "I've already bought this" button on banner ads that come through when you get retargeted? You're like, I've got 2 already.
Yeah,
Stop targeting me.
Yeah, that's never good. So that is solvable with the right setup. But yeah, banner ads. Yeah,
it makes you want to send it back. You're like, piss off.
Yeah, just to show them.
So that's really good. Talking about delivery though, so it's a bit of a taboo subject in food and drink and restaurants, because there's a few schools of thought, which is, I'm trying to run the restaurant, this is a distraction, can be one view. These guys are charging me too much commission, is another view. If it goes wrong, is it the restaurant's fault? Is it Deliveroo's or Uber Eats? Or, there's all these kind of things going on. And then some people saying, I'm going to do delivery myself. That's tricky when you've got to then think about all the SEO and all that. So when you're on a platform like a Deliveroo or an Uber Eats or one of these, is there anything that you can do to stand out more on there? I
think absolutely. Yeah. So, and noted, I've been in, Europe, UK since May 1. So Deliveroo, part of my role is figuring out Deliveroo specifically.
But and you didn't know of these before?
Not Deliveroo. No.
It wasn't in the US?
I've only worked with Instacart and Uber Eats and Uber Delivery in the US from an eCommerce standpoint. But to answer the question, I think absolutely, because I'm a guy that leverages Uber Eats personally.
Yes.
And I think people need to look at it as a sales channel. The same way someone would look at Amazon if they were selling products.
That's fair.
Right? And you can game Amazon, right? There is a game on Amazon when someone lands on your product display page, right? And looks at your product offering and looks at your reviews and looks at the pricing and all that, versus another Amazon competitor's product page. And the same thing's true of Uber Eats, right? So we on the micro, there's a whole opportunity for people to actually take advantage of this channel and be smart. And again, come back to what the consumer's wanting, right? Even making ease of use in terms of the pricing, products, and delivery in ways of like, I was looking to order something the other day, and the one company didn't even offer beverages, right? And so when you're thinking about it, part of Uber Eats is wanting to save time. People are trying to save time. And for me to order from that company, right, assuming everyone that orders dinner would like a beverage, right?
This was no soft drinks?
Nothing, zero, not even water.
Wow.
And so it completely wrote off that entire company to me because I'm trying to save time, and this would require me to go somewhere and get the drink or to make 2 orders, right? And so just small things like that where I think people need to go on the offense because I think it's a huge discovery advantage, right? There's been several times where I've ordered from Uber Eats and then I physically go to that place because now I know it.
Yeah.
Right. So it's certainly a customer acquisition channel, and it's like everything that's new or another channel. It has trade-offs. Yeah. So it's a business decision, and do I think it's one that's worth it? Personally, yes. And people, business is always evolving, and in the restaurants, people should be excited because this one's a big one. Yeah. And if it's big, it probably means it's important to the consumer. Yeah. And so, there's commission issues, but I think it's more of how do we make sure we're delivering the best experience when we deliver on Uber Eats or deliver whatever, and then be able to capture that opportunity and that experience to drive the person back to us physically or to our .com to capture their information. Like, how can you do more with it? Not sort of do the minimal and then expect everything back from the channels.
I think it's crazy. I mean, I think you've got to embrace it. And I'm ex-Travelocity, lastminute.com, back in the day, and I mean, I've seen it happen to Deliveroo people when they've stood up to speak at a public event. It happened to me at lastminute.com where you got booed and you were like, what? I've just, we've sold €1 million Eurostar tickets or hotels for you, or, I know you had to pay as a commission, but you'd have probably had to have spent that anyway. So it's a kind of funny one. But you're right. I mean, there's some basic stuff, right? Which is, you go on to these menus, the pictures aren't good, or there's no picture at all. It's got that fuzzy thing. And then also half the menu's not available, and you're like, come on, guys. But I think there's some smart moves, though. So if you thought about, let's say you're Five Guys or one of these, right? And you go, what is a customer worth to me per month? Or your highest valued customers or whatever, just pay the Deliveroo subscription for them. Right. £7, I think it is a month. Yeah. I'm sure that customer's worth £7 to you. Yeah. So you take your top 20% customers. I haven't thought about that. That's good. Do you know what I mean? And then you just go, right, I'll pay that. Great. You get a customer for life. And even if they are ordering other people's food, you're still getting some credit from that. That's a good thing. That's a nice thing to do. Yeah. It's kind of like you buy a mobile phone and you get a year's Spotify. This time. So, you get our Deezer or whatever it is, iTunes, whatever. You get your 3 months free or... Why are people not thinking like that? And if you think about attention, and Gary always goes here, right? Sure. Attention today is so difficult to get. When we talk about the real estate of the phone and the apps people have on their phone, right? And to be able to have that relationship, if you're Five Guys, to give that subscription, and probably one of the most popular used apps on the phone. Yeah. It makes a ton of sense. I just think it would be a good thing to do, and you don't have to do it for everyone that's going to order once in a blue moon, but you could be really smart about it. I think you could test it. And you're going to get more meal occasions and things like that. Just going back as well, we were talking about restaurant booking and all the rest of it. You guys have got some kind of link to Resi?
Yeah, so I'm not too familiar with that, but I think Gary and the RSC, Gary's Gary's fund invested in Resi a few years back. I think I've heard Gary talk more and more about it, so I think there's a lot of stuff good.
Yeah, I just think, it's to say to people it's probably worth checking out. If it's got his attention, as we're talking about, then there's going to be something in it. And, there's some systems out there, obviously, that people use and are good and help the industry, Book a Table and Open Table and all these things. But be quite interesting to see what disruption that's going to bring. I think it'd be really interesting to look at. I think that'd be really cool.
And it all comes back, and I'm sure this is why he invested, to time.
Yeah, definitely. I think we were meant to meet one of the guys. It never quite worked out. But I would just be curious about what the difference is and what the USP is, and and what it's bringing for people. I think that could be really exciting.
Yeah.
So we were just talking about sort of content marketing as well. So I guess we've touched on the non-funnel, which is good. That was great advice, so thanks for that. But then thinking about that full digital ecosystem and people expecting social media to pay back instantly, we get a lot of this. And, we've been saying it's not quite as easy as that. But I mean, what's your take on social's part in the whole thing in terms of selling shit?
I think it's super important. And like if tomorrow you gave me, a few $1 million to launch a brand, social is going to be a priority. Reason being for me, and I can, there's a few other things to add, but one of the main reasons is, as I saw a lot of these companies, grow on the back of social on Shopify Plus. Think of like the Kylie Cosmetics and those brands of the world.
Did you see the news this morning? It's like, she's almost a billionaire, right?
Yeah.
It's like, Jesus.
Kudos to her.
Oh yeah, good job. Good job.
But so there's the importance of the initial, it's where attention is, right? So, and there's a huge variable when people say social doesn't work, like how good their content is. Yes. There's the execution part that matters. But in addition to that, when brands do get very big, cheaper acquisition, and so it's worth investing there over time because paid doesn't get cheaper.
Yeah.
Right. And all these other acquisition strategies don't get cheaper. But if you're investing in social and you can build organic, I think that's a healthy sign and a good sort of strategy to the business, obviously long term.
Yeah.
And so you want to know how to do that. And so social really has been the king of organic over the past, few years. And so being able to build that awareness, whether it's today or you're building it for year 3 through 5 to really double down on it, because your media is not going to become as efficient, it's only going to get more expensive, and everyone's going to be increasing that. So that's why personally I'm a fan of it, because I think we've seen, if Dollar Shave Club got social down better than they did just ads, would they actually be in a much stronger position today if they took half that budget and invested it in a model that was more similar to like a Fashion Nova?
Well, it's quite interesting you say that, because we had a company we were doing a social media strategy for, actually in automotive lately. And part of what they were citing was things like Old Spice and Dollar Shave Club, and as being, it was just within the brief, it was just some mood boards and stuff. But when I looked at it, I kind of hit rock a bit, and I was like, I don't think their social's that good at all. And I think they're an e-commerce beast.
Yeah.
But as soon as you switch that off, but actually Old Spice I felt was a good advert.
Yeah.
And not much else.
Yeah.
And then I thought, so with respect, I didn't see a lot from them. Let's put it that way.
I haven't either.
You've seen the Old Spice ad when it's the guy on the horse.
Oh yeah,
all that.
Yeah.
So great ad, but I didn't see the follow up.
Yeah.
And then with Dollar Shave Club, same thing. I think they had the opportunity to just be continuously engaging and funny and interesting and entertaining, and I don't feel like that reached me, even if they were.
Yeah.
And
I think
they've done fine. I think they've done all right.
I think part of it is, and I think this is also the opportunity and why we see so many of these challenger brands exist and come up out of nowhere and take market share from companies like Old Spice or Dollar Shave Club, and why they existed and took, away from Gillette, is when you're small, you can be entrepreneurial and you're built to react to what customers are into much quicker and not have sort of handcuffs on around how you execute.
Sign off.
Yeah. And so part of, I think Dollar Shave Club had the media part down, and social they probably could have doubled down on, but they've gone so big that part gets harder now.
Yeah.
But if it's in your DNA from day one, look at it much more of like Glossier, then it always was within the DNA of the company.
Yeah.
Right. So I think we're going to see more, not less, of sort of the Glossier models where from day one, when it was a startup, it was all about the community and the engagement and the social. And as that scales, it continues through the company, at least much more than the existing sort of incumbents of today.
Yeah. Well, I think because you're new over here, have you heard of a brand called Paddy Power yet? Paddy Power?
I have not.
Okay. So it's an Irish gambling company.
Okay.
Right?
Yep.
Just worth checking out. So in terms of the organic content and the lengths that they go to do a good job, I'll send you some links. But yeah, they're seen as the kings of. It's what so many people are writing in briefs. I want to be as funny and as entertaining, and I mean they're edgy. It's pretty edgy stuff. But that's coming from the top. And then they also, I don't know if they still do, but they had a guy whose job was head of mischief. That was his title. So they've got that going on every day. So it's pretty good.
But like, again, like people, that's what people react to now.
Yeah.
Right. Or if you're going to get someone, it's not the same ad. I like that mischief title. I think
that's really cool. So I'm thinking about your time. You better go and do some work soon.
Probably a good idea. Yes.
Or I'll be getting an email from Hudson Yards. So a couple of things then was just a tip. A bit of advice for people who are either starting out on their e-commerce journey with their business or relooking. Thinking, just heard some great advice. I need to sort some stuff out. Be good to know what you think there.
Sure. So step one, if you're going to launch a store or if you're wanting to invest in it, start with Shopify, right? Don't overcomplicate the technology part.
Yep.
And so you're able to focus on what you're good at,
yep.
Right? The business and the brand building. To geo-targeting, if you're in the food space, right? Like really leveraging geo-targeting Instagram and Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would say 3, be built to actually capture value on that investment when they land on your .com. Yeah. Meaning don't just set up a .com and not have not tested and invested and really thought about what the consumer would give you their email for, right? Everyone gives a 10% coupon code. Give them a reason why you're different and why they're actually going to want to spend that time and trust you with their email.
Yeah.
Which means bringing value on the back end with what you send through the email, right? Not like, hey, come down for free drinks tonight, right?
Yeah.
Like really bring value. And you can do this, right? Like people like bring content that makes people laugh or bring content that gets people excited. And it could, if someone had a connection to a football player that was, playing on Team England or a club, right? Which many people, probably do.
Yeah.
Create video content with that and send it out to your people, right? In a way that they're going to enjoy. So I think make the technology part easy because the rest of it's going to be hard. And then focus on where people's attention is social and Facebook. If you already have a restaurant in the food service part, drive people to your .com that are sitting in your restaurant, right? It's as simple as, asking them to go for a reason that adds value to them.
Yeah.
And then third, give them a reason every time to do the things you're trying to get them to do versus just being a product information site about your company.
That's incredible advice. And then final thing is, how good is it to work in VaynerMedia?
It's the best. Tiring, but it's good.
And what's your tip for someone to get a job at VaynerMedia?
Yeah, so I don't know if I had the typical route or maybe I did, but I think I think, Vayner growing as fast as it's growing and doing the things it's doing, I would say two things. One is Vayner always needs talent. So the best way to do that is start developing yourself day one, even if it's not at Vayner. Meaning I spent 2 years at Plus, which it's funny, I did it with that exaggeration. 2 years isn't a long, but the 2 years I got very specific and good at understanding e-com, right? And so if you look at where Vayner is going, it's all about attention. Gary launched a Twitch studio across from our CFO's office last week, right? So
is he beating everyone?
I don't
Are they
know.
letting him win?
I think he's good at those old school games.
Yeah, I think so.
But if you think about where Gary's mind is and where Vayner's mind is, if I'm a kid or, however old I am and I want to be at Vayner in 12 months, I'm going to go learn everything about Twitch in a practical way.
Yes.
And then I'm going to be able to come and bring that to the table. And that is how you sort of leapfrogging, and I think is a way to get in versus doing the typical media and everything Vayner already has. What's the next platform? I would become a master at that and combine it with one other skill. Yeah. And I think then you're coming in with value out of the gate versus just being a jockey that has to learn the ropes that Vayner's already created.
Yeah. That's incredible. Thanks so much for all your advice and just your inspiring story. You've hacked it, you've worked really hard, and you're only just starting, right?
Just starting.
Exciting. Robbie, thanks so much for coming, man.
Thank you for having me. It was a blast.
A huge thank you to Robbie Deeks for every single brain cell and piece of wisdom that he shared with us over the past hour. Really blessed and grateful for Eric and Gary and all the team at VaynerMedia for giving us a loan of the amazing Robbie. So much wisdom. We could have talked for hours, and it might be further down the track that we try and get him in, or even a few others from Vayner, to impart their wisdom on all of us. Hopefully, as he said, using his words, to help us sell more shit. So that's what we're in the game of. No matter which way we dress it up, we want to grow our sales and we want to protect our profits. Huge thanks to Robbie. There'll be lots of wisdom and links and notes in the podcast notes. And also a huge thank you to everyone that's listening and sharing and subscribing to the Spectacular Marketing Podcast. It continues to grow and grow, so thank you. Also, if you could do me a massive favour and just tell one friend to listen to the Spectacular Marketing Podcast, it will really help our growth, really trying to get the word out there so that we can impart even more wisdom to everyone across the industry. A massive thanks again to the exec production team, so Gabby, Gaz and Mihal, for all of their hard work in putting the Spectacular Marketing Podcast together. I'm Mark McCulloch, and this was Spectacular.